I have a question. Can you tell us some more about meditation and what you would recommend?
Sure.
There's a lot of different things, and also about reincarnation. Maybe.
Sure. There's a 1,000 different ways to meditate. Meditation is a tool, and it's a very generic or general tool. People meditate. The two most common is one with a mantra, which is just a kind of a nonsense sound, and you listen to that. You say that sound to yourself in your mind. And how that works is that your mind has this chatter going on all the time. It's analysis. Some people call it monkey mind. You know, it's the analysis, and it's the judging, and the projecting, and just going on all the time. Okay. The point of meditation is to stop that and to just exist as pure consciousness. So when you meditate, you let all that stuff go. You let this physical go too. You let all the sense data go. You just ignore it. It's not that you're not getting sense data. There's still kids playing in the street. There's still things going on. You just let it go, or you parallel process it. It's there and you're someplace else. But meditation is a tool for learning how to let that chatter go. You can do that with the mantra. The mantra just takes up space. It's like busy work. It takes up space with a non-functioning something. So you make a sound that has no meaning. You know, you wouldn't want a sound that was an English word, just something to take up space. And then when you hear, so you just say that to yourself. And you can make something up. It's nice if it has a little vibratory sound. You know, a good one to do would be something like serene. Serene, because you've got a kind of has a vibratory sound to it. You just say that over and over. It means nothing. And suddenly you find yourself thinking, oh, am I doing this right? Oh, well, what am I going to do after this is done? Let's see, what time is it? You know, how long do I have for this? Are the children going to be home yet? You got all this chatter going on, and then you just, oops, stop, back to the mantra. It's just something to fill your head up, so you stop thinking, because you can't be doing that and thinking about thoughts at the same time. Eventually, you learn to let it go. Okay, it's a tool. We talked about the binaural beats. It's another tool to put you in a meditative state. But if you can't learn to get there on your own, you're limited. You have to learn eventually to take the training wheels off.
And so by being in that state of clearer consciousness, not hearing all the rattle, you're more apt to have a clearer connection? Or
Yes, what is your effect on modifying the probability of what's going to happen next has to do with your ability to focus your intent. Because your consciousness, intent is the thing that moves data in consciousness. I mean, after all, consciousness is just chunks of data interacting with each other. Intent is what moves the data. It's what sends, it's what receives. Okay, so if your intent is noisy, think of it in terms of signal and noise. Your intent's the signal you're trying to do. But if you have all in the middle of all this noise, it's not very powerful. It doesn't carry a whole lot of energy, another metaphor, for changing things. You see? So the first thing, if you want to be able to affect things that way, you need to learn to get rid of the noise, so it's nothing left but signal. Then you can do it. That's why we all say start with meditation. That's why everybody on this first place says go meditate. There's nothing magic about meditation except it lets you reduce the noise. You get a higher signal and noise ratio if you meditate. That's the whole point of it. People meditate all kinds of ways. You can listen to music and meditate.
You can make love.
Yeah, you can do any kind of thing if your
the
attitude is right.
The ultimate meditation would be to bring it into your waking life, in your daily life, walking around in a centered state that you can be more apt to be able to take care of yourself.
Exactly.
And for learning.
Yes. Yeah. So it's not just something you do, for 20 minutes, every other day. It ought to be a part of your life. Eventually, what you find if you do that is that you become very centered in the now. You're very aware of what you're doing and what's going on. You're very aware of your intent, and you start parallel processing, as this gentleman said. You start seeing things from multiple perspectives. You can carry on a conversation while doing some other kind of thing, while healing someone. You can work in multiple reality frames, and then the larger reality becomes where you live. You don't just live in this virtual reality. You live in the larger reality. You live in multiple frames. You kind of take on your right as a multi-dimensional being, which you are, as consciousness. Otherwise, you're just restricted to this little viewpoint. You're in the game and you can't see anything past it. but there's lots of ways to meditate. And pick one that suits you. Some people, the other common way is they focus on breath, but that's, they focus on their breathing in and out, slow, and they just keep focusing on it just with the breath, and it's the same kind of thing. If you're focusing on that, you're not chattering. Yeah. And it's just kind of something that's so boring that, it doesn't occupy your mind. Yeah, so
a lot of distraction.
Yeah, so it's just a way of getting rid of the distractions. People listen to music is meditating. Some people do it with dance, with movement. You can get into meditation. There's
the
lots of
ultimate
ways.
thing would to just be in that state.
Yeah. And the state's not that hard to achieve. How many of you have ever read a book and lost this reality while you're reading the book? While you're reading that book, you don't know what's going on around you. The fact that there's kids playing in the yard, and noise, and a truck drives by that you would normally be aware of, you don't hear any of it. It's gone. Well, that's the same as a really good meditation state, except instead of having just a blank, pure consciousness existing as point consciousness, you're involved in the story. But you see, you've done the same thing. You let go of this reality frame, and you're existing in the reality of the book. One small step is to let go of this reality frame, just like you do then, and
you're jumping all over the place.
And just be point consciousness. So you're just a point of consciousness floating in the void. No talk, no data coming in, and that's kind of your jumping off place. Once you get to that point, your intent now is very powerful and very strong because it doesn't have a lot of noise in it. You can put a lot into that intent at that point.
And reincarnation?
Oh yeah, that's about reincarnation.
Okay.
Yeah.
The process of lowering your entropy, growing up, spiritual growth, is not an easy process, right? We all struggle, right? We have lessons. We have to get rid of the fear. Fear is the opposite of love. It's not love-hate, it's love-fear.
I really like that.
Okay. Fear is the originator of ego. Fear is the originator of belief most of the time. A lot of us are afraid of the unknown, so we create beliefs to fill in that fear of the unknown. So it's very hard to do this because it's talking about changing you, not just acting differently, being differently. It has to change at the being level. It's a hard thing to do with a lot of experience. So you can't expect to do that easily. Okay, so the reincarnation idea is that you keep working at it. Okay, now the reason you have to keep working at it is because many people, if you wouldn't cycle, let's say you just live forever, keep working on it, right? Well, why do we have to cycle? Why don't we just live to be, 100,000 years old and keep working on it? Well, after a while, we begin to get trapped by our beliefs. We get into a point where we just, it's like the learning curve goes real fast at first, and then it kind of gets rolled over, and then it goes really, really slow. Because after a while, we believe we've done it all. We've been there, done that. We understand it, and we're no longer open-minded. We're no longer open. We're no longer trying real hard. We're just coasting. Well, at that point, your rate of learning is really slow. And the best thing to do when that happens is go back to where it was steep, right? Yeah, go back to where you were actually making progress. So that's why we cycle, because it's hard to get it all done at once, and because we get stuck in believing that we know a whole lot more than we do. So we recycle. So that's kind of why we have the reincarnational thing. Another way to look at it is that we are the strategy. We're part of the strategy of the larger conscious system evolving. It evolves because we're evolving. Remember, we're the strategy that it broke up into pieces so that it could interact, so that it could evolve. Otherwise you die. So here we are, and that's our job. So we just keep going around in cycles. It's like the Freon in the refrigeration cycle. The compressor just keeps running around the cycle, right? Compresses it gets hot, take away the heat, expand it gets cold, and you don't have new Freon, you just keep running around the cycle. Well, here we are going around the cycles every time. Our job is to lower our entropy a little bit, lower our entropy a little bit. So we're you might say, the evolutionary engine of the larger conscious system. When I say we, I'm not just talking about people in this universe. There are lots of other reality frames out there. That's the point of all of it.
So there's the idea of karma too. So if you were to, you just take those ideas, you're like, you say you're stuck at the end of the thing, so you gotta come back with those and
Yeah.
work them out, or
Car-
is it?
Karma is
not
an idea that's often overdone.
Yeah.
There's two things that create the idea of karma. One of them is that if you don't learn it now, you have to learn it later.
Yeah.
Okay? You don't graduate just because you're old enough.
Right.
You have to change at the being level. So if there's something you don't get now, you'll have to still work on it. And if you don't get it then, you'll still have to work on it. So that's one thing of karma. The other one is
Reducing some of the
that,
lights so
take all the time that you need.
especially
It's not a time test.
Very true.
So it's not punishment. It's not that, oh, you spit in somebody's face and now somebody's have to spit in your face and that's karma. And it's not that precise or defined or anything. It's just based, and it's not punishment.
It's more your journey and your education.
It's your journey.
Yeah.
And if you fail to learn, you get to try it again. And you keep getting to try it again, but you don't do it the same way. You try it again in all sorts of different approaches because it'd be silly to put you
Raise
back
the
in the same
pH.
situation that you
Raise
failed
the
in.
pH of point, and raise the
Yeah.
pH of point, and raise the pH of point.
Right.
Incremental
So-
judge.
What about somebody that goes so far to de-evolve in one cycle, like a Hitler or a person like that?
When there's de-evolution like that, the entity, someone like a Hitler, they're not discarded. You just have to continue to work with that person. Okay, they made some bad decisions. And like anything else, some bad decision will lead to the next bad decision, and it tends to spiral downwards. So it's not that that's a throwaway, it's that that's somebody that now has to crawl out of the hole that they put themselves in. So it's not karma that he's going to have to be tortured and his skin used for lampshades, or that kind of stuff. It's just that he has more growing to do because he went backwards. Now it's going to take him a couple of lifetimes maybe just to get back to where he was before he lost all that. That's his punishment. There's no real punishment. It's
It's all
just that,
creation.
yeah, you just have to,
But
to go the other way.
But if you look at that as like an evil thing, right? Then there'd be no good. So isn't that like
No, it's not that there's no good. Basically, we interact with whatever happens, right? That's what this reality frame gives us lots and lots of novel choices to make. It's like Brownian, I don't know if you know what Brownian motion is. That's if you have a lot of particles in a box, they all bounce around off each other and become evenly distributed very quickly. It's just Brownian motion. We have like social Brownian motion. We all bounce off each other, interact, changes us a little, changes our direction, we bounce someplace off. The job we happen to have, the school we go to, and all that kind of stuff is about as random as you can get. It depends on where you were at the time you had to make the decision, what you were thinking at that time, who you met at that time. There's a lot of randomness in it. That's to our advantage, gives us lots of opportunity. Okay, so it's not all bad. When you take a Hitler, all right, now, that was a terrible thing, but it also created a lot of learning opportunities for millions of other people. All sorts of things happened because of that didn't. All sorts of choices had to be made that otherwise wouldn't have, that were profitable. You can't look at just the negative and say that's all there was to it. There's more than that. It's not just what he did, but it's all the interactions. Yes, he did some horrible things, but there were a lot of people who rose to make great decisions, showing great love and great caring and great sacrifice in those times that grew up a whole lot because of those times. You see, you have to look at the whole thing. But yes, he did go backwards, and yes, he'd have to, then work himself out of that hole. There's no free lunch, you have to work.